Canto 30. On the next page, at the top, in big letters were the words, Evil Impersonators. Below that, there was a map, once again with, You are here, noted on it. Apparently, they were facing the wrong way to see the remaining three groups. After you, Cal said, pointing to the other side of the bridge. Sophie nodded and went to the opposite side with Cal following behind. What they saw on the other side was not a festering pile of living dead. Instead, it was a forest glade. There was even what looked like a deer casually munching on grass in a glen. However, as beautiful as this scene looked, Cal could tell it was not pleasant. There was a mucky patch where Cal was sure if he were to step in it, he'd sink about 2 feet and be suctioned down. The only way he'd be able to get out would be to pull his feet out of his shoes, leaving them behind. He saw bugs swarming over this area, which also told him he'd get bit and have insects in his eyes, ears, and mouth. Not pleasant at all. Beyond the muck was the glade itself. Even standing on the bridge, he could tell the glade was oppressively humid and hot. A terrible combination as Cal absently pulled at his collar. The humidity seemed to attack even from a distance. Finally, there was no shade. The sun, which apparently existed in this pit, relentlessly shone on everything within this side of the bridge. Looking back at his map, he realized these areas were marked with letters. A for the sky, B for the swamp, and C for the glen. At the bottom of the page, these letters had definition. A, impersonators. B, counterfeiters. C, false witnesses. Are there people here? Cal asked as he turned to Sophie. They're all over. She was staring with a look of deep sadness. He looked out again, but still not seeing anything, shook his head and turned the page. Impersonators, it read at the top. The illustration was a collection of poorly anthropomorphized animals. The caption read, In life, they pretended to be something they were not, to steal, destroy, and subvert what others had. Now they're forced into a form that is not their own until they learn their lesson. Cal looked again. At first, at the deer that seemed too far away to get a good look, but then at the sky where he saw what appeared to be a hawk circling above. It was a big creature, at least twice the size of a bald eagle, but dark all over. It made its drowsy circle. Then it suddenly nose-dived down, spearing something with its hook-like talons. It, too, was large, about the size of a medium dog, but it looked like a rat, with a long, naked tail and big, pointy ears. As the eagle pulled the rat up, their arch came by Cal and Sophie. Both gasped. These creatures were anthropomorphized, or were they animalized? The human parts looked so wrong. Cal kept forgetting it was supposed to be what was right. Like the eagle had huge hairy male legs with taloned feet, and it also had human eyes that looked so incorrect the way an eagle's eyes would be positioned. The rat had human hands that were somehow oversized for even a dog-sized rat. She also had a chest that clearly let Cal know this rat was female. That's why when the two got close enough to see, Cal looked away. Okay, Cal noted, choosing to admire the brickwork of the bridge. The animals were clearly human, or were once. That's not even all, Sophie declared. Are the two of them gone? Cal asked, refusing to look up, afraid the eagle would be holding up the rat, waiting. They're far enough away now, Sophie promised. When Cal looked up, she was pointing in the distance where they were. The eagle was pulling apart the rat, who was turning into a bloody pulp. That's vicious. How horrible is that? Cal asked, disgusted. Don't, Sophie reprimanded. Whatever they did, they both need this. Cal couldn't imagine how and didn't want to try. I'll take your word for it. He turned the page to see an image of a humanized tree. At the top it read, counterfeiters. At the bottom it read, knowingly sold a fake to people who needed the real thing. From the image, arrows were pointing at different parts. Below the tree man, it read, legs rooted in the muck as they rooted others in life. Pointing to the man's trunk, it read, scales as thick as the bark of a tree from trying to scratch out what they did. Their sin has been transformed into a sappy ooze. Finally, the arrow from their head read, unable to keep what made them counterfeiters. This one used charm, so now he is unpleasant to look at. Cal looked down at the scene and now saw the humanity in the tree in the muck. He watched as the man attempted to hitch his shoulder while his opposite hand attempted to scratch. His fingers were long and razor-like. Where he was able to reach, he was able to tear up and allow a sticky substance to ooze out a little. He turned the page. At the top it read, false witnesses. Below was an illustration of the meadow or glen. The grass were people. Each individual blade was a different person. He dropped his hand down. The deer is eating people, Cal said. Of course it is. Can't just be a deer eating grass. Now it was horrifying watching the human deer eating the grass. But there were also other human animals he saw, walking all over the field. What looked like the grass gently swaying in the breeze was actually tiny humans struggling against the ground. He lifted the book back up. Below the illustration it read, they claimed to have my word, and they did not. What they used that false message for was hurtful towards all of creation. Therefore they became like grass, able to bend and grow. If they can't, it hurts and breaks. Sophie, Cal finally said, still staring at the last page. Yes? Remind me not to get on God's bad side. Sophie gave Cal a loving pat on the back. Ready to go on? Cal nodded, closing the pamphlet, the book. For good measure, he looked at the watch he was wearing. Time to move forward, it read. To this final test, he nearly commanded. As they approached the end of the bridge, there was a basket with a sign. Please place your book in here for the next guest. Cal personally noted the word guest and dropped it in the basket.